Hey, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining our live webinar today. My name is Evangelia Komitopoulou. I'm heading up the global customized solutions for safety, quality, and food sustainability at SGS. And I'm very happy to share the floor today with Benjamin Lefilibert, CEO and co-founder of the Pledge on Food Waste. So moving on to our agenda, quickly, I will start with a very brief introduction to SGS and how we support the hospitality and food service sector. Then I will give you a short overview of our partnership and what it means to the food service and hospitality industry, before passing on to Benjamin to just go a bit deeper into the framework of Pledge on Food Waste. We will finish off with an overview of the SGS's role in the certification process, highlight the key steps in the overall audit and certification, and how our approach helps minimize disruption while also at the same time add real value. There will be time for questions at the end, so please post your questions throughout the presentation. We will do our best to come back to you at the end and respond to as many questions as possible after the call or very shortly during the call or very shortly after that. Okay, so moving on. For those of you who may not know as well, SGS is the world's leading testing, inspection, and certification company. We operate in about 115 countries with a network of more than 2,700 offices and laboratories. We operate across different industries, from agriculture and food to life sciences and sustainability, and we help organizations meet regulatory requirements, improve performance, and build trust with their customers. Specifically for the food sector, we support businesses throughout the supply chain, and we really operate from farm to fork. Our services cover everything on food safety, quality, and sustainability. And clearly, in today's session, we are going to be focusing on how we bring all this expertise to the hospitality and food service sector through our partnership with the Pledge on Food Waste. At SGS, we work with food service providers of all sizes, from small restaurants to global hotel chains all over the world. Our role, amongst others, is to help organizations, first of all, manage risk and run safe and efficient operations, protect the guests and staff working within the facilities by helping them identify and implement consistent food safety and hygiene practices, stay on top of complex regulations and industry requirements, and also help clients create and implement a culture of quality, safety, and sustainability across the entire service chain. So really, at the end of the day, it's all about helping industry, helping you raise the bar and stay ahead. And this is really our mission. We are, for that reason, very happy and very proud to be the approved global certification body for the Pledge on Food Waste. And this partnership really combines the SGS global auditing expertise and global reach with the Pledge's practical, results-focused approach, and as you will see, very structured approach. Together, we help organizations verify their sustainability performance, align with global ESG goals, and also improve operational efficiency and build stronger brands. This is a unique value proposition for any food service provider that is really serious about reducing waste and drive a measurable impact. And with that said, I would like to hand over to Benjamin to give you a closer look at the Pledge on Food Waste, specifically the framework, what that involves, how it works in practice, and the value that it brings to food service. So thank you, and off to you, Benjamin.
Fantastic, thank you. So thank you very much, Evangelia, and thank you for the opportunity. Hello, everyone, wherever you are in the world. My name is Benjamin Lefilibert, so I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Pledge on Food Waste. Maybe before I dive into the topic and the actual scheme itself, it's important probably to share the history behind. So I started working on the topic of food waste prevention, being puzzled by the fact that there was nothing happening in the food service industry related to that topic 13 years ago. I was puzzled, I was shocked to see that when asking simple questions related to food waste, I couldn't get any answers. And that really triggered my interest and helped me realize that there is a huge issue that is completely overlooked. And from that point onward, decided to do nothing else but food waste prevention in the food service and hospitality sector. So the pledge was actually initiated by understanding and collecting and putting together all the best practices that we could find and articulated them in a way that would make sense to have a holistic approach that helps to reduce food waste, save on costs, and ultimately stand out from the crowd in terms of positioning and branding. So before diving directly into the scheme itself, the certification, many people do not necessarily see the link between food waste and its negative consequences. So food waste has dire consequences on the society, on the environment, and has financial impact beyond understanding for most professionals for some reasons that I will share with you. So on the societal, societal side, once we understand that it is estimated that food, that out of all the food we produce globally, there is roughly 1/3 that is actually lost or wasted, depending on if you take the entire food supply chain, which is a staggering amount of inefficiency. Some other studies are actually more pointing to 40%, but it's even more hard to accept once you realize that also 1 person in 11 worldwide are actually facing hunger or malnutrition. That means that our system is broken, it needs to be fixed. On the environmental side, in particular, on the carbon footprint attached to food waste, if food waste was a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter of carbon emission in the world. It's only the carbon footprint of it. So 3rd country may sound like hard to put on the scale. To give a comparison, food waste represent 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Massive amounts of greenhouse gas emission, because predominantly food that is rotting and not disposed of in a proper way, especially when accumulated, not in a natural way, but in accumulated way, typically in landfills, is rotting and generating methane, which is extremely potent and impactful typically, and has a strong climate change effect. So that's on the environmental side. So, but there are many players that are not paying attention. So sorry, before I launch the video on the financial side, love that video that really like to share and shift the perspective on this issue. You have the possibility, I think you need to do some, click some icon to make sure you can hear the sound of the video. So for you behind your computer, there must be a small icon. If you cannot hear the sound, just click it and you should be able to have the video full experience. Yeah, so as you can see, I really love that video. It's maybe not new for you, but for us working on that topic, it usually resonates both with owners, but as well as with employees that start shifting their perspective on this issue. And I think that's quite essential. In order to see any change happening, you will have to get also your team to understand that there is an issue, and whatever angle resonates with them, being societal, environmental, or financial, you will gain a lot from having the adopters of the pledge, typically the team that is in charge of implementing, to understand the why. I would like also to share a couple of hard-learned lessons that also I think illustrate pretty well the situation that we are in today. First one is, very interestingly, we realized that businesses, food service businesses in particular, that do not monitor food waste actually have a very, I would say, significant misunderstanding about the quantity of food that ends up in the bin because they are not tracking it. So when we ask typically business owners or those that run the kitchen, how many kilos do you think you're wasting per day? If they don't have a system of monitoring, they would underestimate the volume being wasted by 3 to 5. So put differently, they are wasting 3 to 5 times more than what they initially thought. That's a pretty natural bias, psychological bias, but that we see throughout. So monitoring system is pretty essential. Second misunderstanding that we see throughout for those businesses that have a buffet, so typically hotels or restaurants that have buffet. Many seems to still believe that the main culprit for food waste is the buffet, and if we were eliminating the buffet, there would be no more food waste. Or restaurants that do not serve buffet would, we heard that in the past, oh, we don't have any food waste because we don't have any buffet. And you're like, well, that's not as simple as that. So typically what we observe collecting millions of data entry points on food waste is that buffet waste typically represents 10 to 15% only of all food waste for hotels. Once you take a holistic approach and would cover everything from the production kitchens to what is wasted during the storage, the preparation, all the way to the end consumer, what we call the plate waste. And the third misunderstanding is that, oh, because our food waste is not that big, it's actually not really impacting us that badly. Well, actually, that's not the case. Again, if you monitor food waste, you quantify it, and you apply a certain price per kilo, and then you multiply those quantity measured in 1 day over 365, and you compare whatever figures you obtain to what you generate in terms of food revenue, it usually ranges between 6 to 14% of the food revenue that is wasted due to food waste or lost because of food waste. So that's a significant dent on your thin margins that actually you shouldn't allow yourself to lose. So this was kind of to give you a better understanding of the why and give you more elements to grasp the severity of the food waste issue. Now, as I mentioned, the pledge was built with experts in the fields to put together all those best practices and articulate them in the format of criteria that are then verified by third-party auditing. So the purpose of the pledge is to help provide a roadmap, a guidebook, if you will, holistically tackling the issue of food waste in food service and the food service sector. So this is the pledge, the leading third-party, global leading third-party certification that is doing one thing and one thing only, being able to minimize food waste, save on costs, and then ultimately present yourself with a different angle to stand out from the competition. So let's have a look a bit more. The pledge has been designed as is today for hotels, restaurants, and canteens that would like to implement a holistic approach, as well as convention centers and events. We have adopters currently in about 18 countries, and strong demand that is actually coming up around the globe. And the certification itself is actually composed of 95 criteria that are articulated around 7 key pillars. So the first pillar is about process documentation. What does that mean? Is in this set of criteria, you will have to define your own food waste policy. You will be guided about what sort of KPIs should be tracked and what sort of reporting and action plan is expected from you. Second pillar is about employee commitment. So what sort of training should be delivered to what sort of employees, depending if they are the front of house, back of house, but in relation to food. It's about how do you engage your employees in helping and supporting your effort to minimize food waste. The third one is about food waste monitoring systems. So the pledgers, as we call them, that are adopting the pledge or about being in the process of implementing the pledge, need to show that they're implementing a food waste monitoring system. This food waste monitoring system can be very simple, pen and paper, or more advanced. What matters is that food waste is recorded front of house, back of house on a daily basis in gram per cover, and that there is a system of tracking of the performance. I will go a bit into this. But the pillar number 4 is about the steps 4 and 5 are all the steps that food is going through, from purchasing all the way to receiving, storage, forecasting, mise en place, all the way to food offering. And those steps are what we call the food waste generation points. And we design and embedded criteria that help the adopters not only to reinforce existing procedures that may be loose, but also to add new ones that help to tighten the screw at each of those steps to avoid having, you can visualize it as a leakage, if you will, like a hose that has popped and that you should fill in order to minimize the amount of in that case, food that is lost at each of those steps. But this is only what you can do by yourself within your direct control. However, we are providing criteria and guidelines on how to engage customers. That's a very important component because many food professionals tend to think that, okay, the customer plate waste is something we have no control over. And we beg to disagree because we have divided this pillar and the criteria related to customer engagement in a way that there are certain touch points that typically the pledgers or the restaurant should adopt to interact and engage and nudge the customer in reducing plate waste, in basically not wasting food that they have in front of them. Doesn't mean that it goes down to zero, we all know that, but what matters is to get the picture that they are online and on-site touch points where the criteria are guiding you to have the right message through so that the customers do not feel that they are finger pointed on minimizing plate waste, but rather encouraged to do the right thing and having this feel-good factor. And ultimately, the 7th pillar is about post-consumer, meaning that once you have control all of your operation directly and safe, actually for your own benefit, what else can you do to thrive for or to basically aim for zero food waste to landfill? So we have based the criteria in a way and constructed it in a way that approximately 80 to 85% of all criteria are related to minimizing food waste. And the rest of the criteria are related to how do you manage what remains. And what remains are either food surplus that are still edible. So those food surplus, there are different criteria related. Can you sell it? Can you distribute it for human charity or your own staff? If not possible, can you feed animal? Depends on the geographies, it depends on the legislation. Typically, ideally, animals that re-enter the human food chain, from pigs to fish to chicken, for instance. If not possible, can you transform it? So following the hierarchy of the food waste pyramid in order to explore all the options and thrive for zero food waste to landfill. So pillar number 1 being illustrated here, that's policy that has to be signed by the top management, sharing the commitment, and that is shared publicly. Second pillar is illustrating how some example of employees' commitment and engagement, being during the lunchtime, being in the staff area, etc., all related to campaign to get the staff to think and basically then reproduce what they are being, I would say, exposed to during the lunchtime in during the work. The third pillar is about the food waste monitoring system. So maybe a couple of words on this. The requirements of the criteria leave it open. So you can go pen and paper, as I mentioned, and then digitalize your data. Or you can go for more advanced systems. So typically, one of the systems that we recommend using is called FIT by Lido, Food Intel Tech, FIT. That helps to very easily implement food waste monitoring system, collecting data, understanding the performance. But the requirements set in the pledge opens up to other suppliers. So if you already have or your customers that are thinking of implementing the pledge already have system in place, that's fine, because you can plug the pledge on top. You don't need to change supplier. Pillar number 4, as I mentioned, is purchasing, receiving, storage, and forecasting. Pillar number 5 is anything related to food preparation and offering, in particular how some criteria in the pledge embed the best practices on how to run a buffet with minimum food waste at the end of the shift in a very detailed way. There are other requirements that are actually bonus. We'll explain the system of compulsory versus bonus criteria. But on the bonus criteria, there are some that are related to the adapters need to create a zero food waste dish, meaning really from nose to tail, where all the ingredients are being utilized in a way or another to create one dish that has zero food waste remaining. And this is then also a way for the pledgers to showcase another touch points with their customers to showcase their commitment to reduce food waste. 6th one is the customer engagement, so linked also to this, but as I mentioned, the different touch points online or on site, ranging from table talkers to utilizing different ways to convey the message about the commitment on reducing food waste and pursuing the pledge. And then ultimately some other illustration of once you have prevented food waste as much as possible for your own benefit, then turning around and look at your local ecosystem of what we call food waste solution providers or existing solutions to again strive for zero food waste to landfill. So what about the journey? Pretty simple. Journey is membership. So you sign up and become a pledger, as we call them. Then the implementation process is basically going through understanding what are you already doing, documenting it, and then identifying what are the additional criteria that are not in compliance, meaning that procedures that you do not have, and start implementing them, documenting them, and then uploading them on the compliance platform. Important thing is that we believe that an effective implementation goes through a transversal approach, meaning that having one champion is great, having multiple players involved in the process is even better. So we are asking the pledgers to set up a food lover committee, usually have, of course, culinary, but also service. And for larger operations, such as hotels, we would include, for instance, human resources, marketing, or finance. Their role is not, of course, as detailed as those that are running the kitchen operation, but play an important role in the overall efforts. And then comes the audit. So typically with SGS, where the auditors will verify the compliance, access the platform, and review all the evidences, then come on site and verify that the job is actually being done. And ultimately, once the audit is successful, is basically being certified. Couple of words, I hope you're still with me, couple of words about the compliance platform. Compliance platform is actually a very agile tool that also helps you in the overall compliance process. So it includes all the criteria, but as well guidance, explanations, and tools that helps the adopters to know what direction or what are the expectations from the auditors, or even access templates that would help in the overall implementation process within their own operation. It is in multi-languages for those that have this sort of languages in their operation or within their teams. And ultimately, it gives also access to the pledgers to additional resources that can be hacks, that can be knowledge hub, as we call it, which can be references to legislation and other important pieces of information, and communication kit. So the audit is on. What is important to understand is that they are in total 95 criteria, and out of the 95 criteria, 78 are actually compulsory. That means that if you don't show compliance with them, you don't pass, you don't get certified. But that's the bare minimum. And then you have bonus criteria. And the bonus criteria helps the adopters achieve different levels. Those levels are from bronze to silver to gold, all the way to all-star, which is 100% compliance against the standard. And this is why we call it certification and benchmarking system, because that difference matters. So you can be gold and your competitor can be gold, but they can be 92% compliance while you are 97, knowing that you actually do a slightly better job than they are. And it's also interesting internally, especially for larger hotel groups, restaurant groups, or food service companies that want to differentiate or assess the level of performance of their different sites using the same set of criteria, so that they can gamify the whole implementation and see who will perform best. So in a nutshell, benefit for the pledgers: financial impact, 3 to 5% reduction in food cost per cover, with typically an ROI in about 6 months. Carbon emission reduction, directly also usable in terms of conveying and communicating about your commitment. Average food waste reduction is about 30%. And obviously then you have the credential for your international recognition. When signing up for the pledge, as I mentioned, a few of those already. So it's not only the criteria, but it's all the compliance platform that includes multiple useful resources from hacks, communication kits, as well as knowledge hub. We do also provide onboarding support to make sure that everything is in place and everything is clear, as well as a session to help closer to the certification time, how to optimize your engagement with your guests, your customers, that I touched on during the pillar number 6. And ultimately, you receive also all your marketing credentials, including a very nice plaque that is displayed at the entrance, usually at the restaurants or the hotels, as well as all the digital assets that you will receive in parallel. And those assets obviously are then utilized by the marketing communication team to display and to attract new type of customers that are more sensitive to obviously the sustainability issue. Forgot to mention that tackling food waste is helping to tackle the UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, number 2, 12, 13, and 17. So most of the food service companies and hospitality players have objectives related to sustainability and to the SDGs. A great deal of them now also have targets related to food waste itself. So it fits perfectly in the bigger picture of actually improving the performance and reporting on the SDG side. Now, a couple of examples. So we have the example from a large project that we implemented with 55 Marriott Hotel in the UK, Ireland, and Iceland. This is the type of result that were achieved over a bit less than 6 months period. So there are possibilities to scale the implementation, as well as to train and accompany larger number of adopters following the same methodology and having the right guidance And this is the type of results that they achieved. Then I have other examples, typically from Minor International, their Anantara Hotel, the Palm in Dubai, with fantastic results during the implementation. That's in different geography. And then I have one video, which I don't know if
I say the pledge is practical and precise, built on SOPs and real numbers, not abstract ideals. Achieving the Pledge Gold certification at Anantara the Palm Dubai was a step-by-step process over 12 months. We rolled out structured SOP based on the Pledge 7 pillars and 95 criteria, covering everything from supplier purchasing to food disposal. Trained over 50 team members in portion control, trimming, knife skills and zero-waste cooking, reinforcing basics. We deployed technology to measure waste at source, super helpful. Introducing a smaller plates for buffet portion adjusting, plus guest-facing signages to help to educate our guests also why we do certain steps. And installed an on-site biodigester by diverting up to 400 kg a day from landfill. Pledge Framework gave us a clear, metric-driven roadmap. Regular monitoring meant we could quickly identify waste hotspots, such as buffet overflow or prep trim, and take real-time corrective action. Since certification, we have reduced food waste significantly. Installing the biodigester cut carbon output by 280 tons per year. We saved cost on food procurement and waste disposal. Enhancing our brand positioning, we are the first in the Middle East to achieve gold level, which resonates strongly with the eco-awareness. You don't need to overhaul everything in overnight. Start with kitchen training and simple adjusting in prep and portioning. The saving and guest goodwill come along, and the pace can and should fit your team rhythm. Pledge on food waste.
So that was a nice testimonial just to conclude my presentation about the pledge. And Evangelia, I'll get to you.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, that was really very, very, very good. Thank you very much, Benjamin. That was really very inspiring. Okay, so as I mentioned right at the start, we will be finishing off with a few more detail about excuse me, our involvement in the certification process. So as the approved global certification body, SGS delivers the independent third-party audits to verify compliance with the framework. And we also offer the pre-certification gap assessment. This is an optional step. And this is really to help you prepare and also streamline the audit process overall. With our global network of auditors, we can deliver the services locally using our local auditors, our local experts who speak the language and also understand really well the culture and the market context of the operations. To make things easier for our clients, we do offer an integrated audit approach. We combine the pledge with any other existing food safety or hygiene audits or any other audits that we may be delivering on site. And in this way, we help reduce costs, save time, and give you a better visibility of the overall performance. And this is really very important nowadays, having reports that actually touch on all aspects of your operations. So one of the big advantages working with us and the pledge is that we can streamline the audit process. We know that time and resources are limited for everyone nowadays. So instead of us scheduling a number of different audits for a number of different auditors to visit your sites, we can do that once. We can combine the pledge certification with other audits that we deliver, and I've just mentioned a few on the slides here. If you are an existing client working on SGS HACCP for catering, or our own SGS Hygiene Monitor program, or any other customized solution that we may be working with you, we can combine audits and save so much time and effort on both sides. This is really the smarter way of doing this nowadays. It's offering a practical approach that adds value while keeping things simple. And this is what everybody needs nowadays. Okay, so moving on to the certification journey, just a summary. Benjamin already covered that in terms of the overall process flow, but really very easy steps to follow. Contact us to initiate the process and discuss your journey with us. We will pick up on your requirements and then go through with you step by step the process that you need to take. As I mentioned, you can choose to begin with a gap audit. We call it a pre-assessment, just to make sure that you understand where you stand in terms of compliance, what your gaps are, and what you need to do to comply and meet the requirements. You will be working with the pledge experts at the same time, and this is the time to run any training or any additional monitoring of existing processes that you may have. And once everything is set and you are happy to continue, SGS will carry on with the independent certification audit to assess compliance. And if successful, you will be awarded the pledge certification, which is really a clear signal of your commitment to reducing food waste and improving performance. There is an annual certification just to make sure that we can monitor and report on sustained compliance, and as part of the continuous improvement process, similarly to any other accredited certification. So this is it. I can see that there are a few questions that already have come up. There are some questions that we will have to come back to you individually, as they are very specific to your own requirements. Okay, so maybe we can start. Does a pledger need to stay below a certain percentage food waste to be certified? Benjamin?
So that's a very good question. So in the current set of criteria, no. What it has to do is to show that it is currently monitoring food waste, I mentioned, in gram per cover, daily basis, digital, cover the front of the house, back of the house, and actually compare itself to its own baseline. But there is no specific percentage of reduction that is necessary to be certified. We're working on embedding this in the new version of the criteria. Those, it's a very good question from Michael.
There's a second question also. Is there a requirement on continuous improvement on the amount of food waste?
So same, currently no, but in the next version of the criteria, yes, that will be embedded.
Okay, thank you very much. Although the focus is restaurant, food service, and hotels, any thoughts on supermarkets?
So yes, supermarkets is something that we are looking at. So currently there is no specific set of criteria, but we see a growing demand for clear methodologies that is impactful and that can be adapted to the supermarket or the retailer. So stay tuned. This is in the pipe.
Excellent. There is a question which is a bit more generic. Could you elaborate on impact of food waste on carbon emission? I mean, you've showed some data, I think, about that. I don't know if there is more data that we can share.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a full set of studies about this, but the link between food waste and carbon emissions is a bit like maybe so Janaka had been maybe joining a bit later. So there's direct link between food waste and carbon emission in the sense that you need to think in terms of food supply chain. So for instance, every time you are a commercial kitchen that would throw away, let's say, a banana, you need to think of each of the steps that banana had to go through to be that banana that will end up in your bin. And that means from the moment you sow the seeds to having a full-fledged banana that is then harvested. So at that level, there is already some waste and carbon emission related to the actual production. Then to transport it, then to package it, then to transport it again, then to store it, then to propose or to offer it or to discard it, there are carbon emission attached to each of those steps. And I'm not even talking about the other components which are ridiculously important, such as the water footprint embedded into food waste. It's just ridiculous once you start seeing the correlation or the amount of water needed to produce, let's say, 1 kilo of chicken requires 4,000 liters of water. That is the sort of association that most people, even most professionals, do not make. So there are multiple environmental consequences that are very, very, I would say, concerning related to food waste, which needs to be embedded in order to shift the industry in a better direction.
Thank you. How to ensure or quantify your food waste, and if we convert it into compost, then how to quantify that? Is there a particular standard that people can access, Benjamin?
Yes. So yes, there is standard. The standard is we have this very often sort of pushback. Oh, we are composting our food waste. We don't really have food waste. Composting is not the solution you should be looking at. If you want to save on your cost, if you want to save on your overall impact, you need to prevent food waste. And then you need to follow the food waste pyramid in order to explore the best practices and the best options that are better than composting. Composting is obviously much, much better than throwing to the bin and then going to the landfill or burning, but it's not the best options. You need to look at, can you feed an animal that is better than composting, and typically animals that are part of the human food chain, or can you redistribute those food surplus or sell them, or just avoid it altogether? And that's the hierarchy in the approach. So composting is great if you compare to the worst option, which is just sending it to the landfill, but it's the lowest priority out of the food waste pyramid, which should be the focus and which is embedded in the pledge on food waste.
Well, thank you. And there is a follow-up: how to calculate impact and making it into a sustainable storytelling.
Well, that's a bit like if by following what I was presenting throughout the implementation, the fact that implementing the pledge is not just ticking the boxes, is adopting a new way of running your operation, transversal approach, holistic approach, focusing on the preventive side, collecting data to measure your performance and reduce your impact, involving also your team, but other stakeholders, your suppliers, your guests, and ultimately implementing those changes, documented, having it verified by SGS in terms of compliance, and then being able to share that story with the validation from the third party, which give that credit to the whole process, which makes it a very powerful narrative.
Thank you. There is a comment which I basically agree on. Many companies do not want to donate because of fear of certain government legislation on food safety.
Yeah.
That's true. That is absolutely true. But
yes.
My understanding, Benjamin, is that the pledge does not mandate donation, right?
Exactly. It's not mandates. That's typically the one of the bonus criteria. So it's not a must. It's something that we are encouraging the pledges to do. And if not possible because of legislation, it's not a problem. There is also now more and more countries that have issued something that is called the Good Samaritan law, that basically at the moment the food service is giving away the food in good faith. All liability, all legal actions cannot be performed against the donor because is given in good faith. And anyways, now most of the food rescue organizations are actually also having food hygiene trained professional to identify what they can or cannot take.
Excellent. Can you help develop clients develop their own sustainability story?
Yes. Sorry, you say it again?
Can we help clients develop their own sustainability story?
100%. Yes, 100%. And then we see that it's funny because something we were discussing earlier with some of my colleagues, We see that a lot of the adopters want to do the right thing, know that there is a benefit, see the benefit, and are not necessarily agile in how to convey the story in a nice narrative. And yes, this is something that we help also the adopters do.
Another question here on food safety. How you will ensure the safety of the food while the establishment pledged to food waste?
So it is also linked to one of the other questions that was asked. There are no criteria that are compromising the food safety standards. So the criteria are actually building on typically HACCP or other international standard on food hygiene. So it is not compromising at any moment. There are higher, I would say, authority. Typically, hygiene is the top priority. So it's not about compromising this.
Okay, that is excellent. Is the certification scheme supported by any accreditation body, example, UCAS? This is not a UCAS accredited scheme, no. So there is no such accreditation involved.
No, however, currently discussing with other authorities in Singapore, typically for this accreditation.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, Ben, can you tell us what makes the pledge different from any other food waste initiative that is out there?
Not yet. I think what is important to understand is that the pledge is pretty unique in itself because most, I would say, sustainability certification in the food sector tend to be trying to be 360, so to cover all aspects related to energy, water, waste, staff awareness, local community, etc. We decided to take a different approach and to take a deep dive into the issue of food waste, because if you want to make an impact and if you really want to tackle this issue within your operation, you need to have a holistic approach and you need to go in depth. And that's why we do with those 7 pillars to have really, again, a comprehensive and holistic approach to that issue. And that's why I would tend to present it as the other certification are more like horizontal, and the pledge, we go deep, we are vertical. One thing only, food waste prevention.
All right, thank you for that. Are there any common challenges that the food service teams face during the implementation of the pledge that we can share?
The challenge is a bit like what I was saying initially. The challenges are you need to make sure that the team, if you are making the decision, let's say at the corporate level that you're going to implement it, you need to make sure that the communication about the why this issue is important to tackle and what is expected from the team, the operation team that's going to implement it, is pretty essential, because that will be directly linked to their level of understanding will be linked to their level of motivation in implementing and doing it thoroughly. Some of the challenge, so motivation is a very important one. Understanding and motivation, because then there are some pushback, and then of course the implementation cannot be as successful. I would say that's the biggest challenge. Then I would say, like any serious certification schemes, it's not just ticking a few boxes, taking a few pictures, and the job is done. You have, as you saw, a comprehensive roadmap recommended to be adopted and implemented by multiple type of stakeholder players in that case. And you have to be systematic. You have to be organized, collect the evidences, and step by step document it and move towards the end goal, which is the certification.
Excellent. Do you partner or share some resources with pledges about organizations like Second Harvest that help get eatable food donated to people? Question that just came up.
So this is something that we continuously also we're working on. is to try to provide key information as well as building partnership with local players that are active along the food waste pyramid. So, as I mentioned, that could be consultants that are providing training or consulting on food waste. That could be food waste technology related to monitoring. That could be organizations that collect surplus for charity, or those that collect the organic waste for transformation, municipality composting, or even biodigester, this sort of technology to transform organic waste. We like to build those partnerships because then the adopters, the pledgers, can have references of who they can work with in their direct vicinity.
Thank you. Is the pledge a scheme for all size organizations, Benjamin?
Yes, so we have pledgers that are fine dining, 15-seaters sort of restaurant, to more casual, to corporate canteens also that are adopting it. For instance, some banks in the Indian Ocean, to larger hotels or restaurant chains. So it is currently adapted to multiple type of adapters, and sometimes if some of the criteria are obviously not relevant, then they would not be penalized for not showing compliance.
Okay, thank you. And how much time does it typically take for a food service site to become ready for certification? I think you've answered this, but maybe you can cover that again.
Yes, so yes, usually we say on average it's about 6 months. We have seen faster adopters that would make it in 4, typically those that are very motivated. They may have already some system in place. I think I mentioned, but I think it's important to repeat that typically what is being done doesn't need to be redone or undone, right? So if you have existing food hygiene certification in place, you don't need to repeat the criteria that are covered by your certification on food hygiene and safety. If you have existing equivalent of food lovers committee that are the green committee, as it happens, you don't need to repeat. You just assign responsibility within that green committee to become the equivalent of food lovers committee. You may also already have some food waste monitoring system in place. Same, as long as you show that the system is covering the requirements set in the criteria, there is no need to change. It's just about documenting, showing that you are already doing it, and uploading it on the compliance platform.
Okay, and I think this may be, we have some time, so please, if you have any more questions, please add them in. Who is typically involved in the implementation from organizations?
Who is what, sorry?
Who is involved in the implementation of the pledge?
So who is involved? From the adopters?
Yes.
Yes, so typically that's a bit like what we call in our own jargon the FLC, the Food Lovers Committee. So typically the main responsibility, most of the criteria are related to the back of house kitchen operation. So it makes sense typically to have the executive chef to be the lead, with the help, if possible, with someone, a coordinator that is more on the collection of the evidences and uploading the evidences on the compliance platform. And then, as I mentioned, it makes sense to have someone from the front of house, so from the service team, to also join the Food Lovers Committee, because they have an important role to play in identifying and using those touch points to nudge the consumers, the guests, as well as marketing can be differentiated, or the same sort of person that helps to shape the narrative. So again, transversal approach, but typically culinary and service are the two main ones. Hygiene also, or sustainability managers obviously have a nice overview of what is happening and are usually good to help. A bit of marketing, a bit of HR is also welcome for the larger organizations.
Excellent, thank you, Ben. Okay, I cannot see any more questions. As I said, we will go back to you individually for some of them. Thank you very much, Benjamin. Thank you everyone for attending, and have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much, Anjali.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.